Alright, so we've all been rewatching the Spider-Man movies, getting ready for No Way Home, and during my rewatch, I came to the conclusion that I think the Peter Parker Spider-Man we see in the Sam Raimi trilogy, portrayed by Tobey Maguire, is the worst live-action Spider-Man.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
And I think unlike most people, I'm not trying to base this off who was the best actor or who's even the most comic accurate. I'm trying to base this off of who's the best hero. Who should people look up to? Who should people aspire to be?
He's inspiring. He inspires me to be a better man.
I'm not just looking at what they do, but why they do what they do. Are they heroes because they actually want to do good, or because they feel obligated to do good? Also, I'm going to be talking about Tobey, Andrew, and Tom, so if I say the actor's name and not just
Peter,
I'm only talking about their version of Peter and not them as actors or people. Alright, so with all that out of the way, I want to start with something each Spider-Man has in common. At some point, each Spider-Man isn't Spider-Man. At least for a little bit. Tom stopped being Spider-Man when he was told by Tony Stark, basically, that he can't be Spider-Man anymore, or at least not with Tony Stark stuff. For this Peter, he's really just trying to live up to all the heroes that have come before him. So when Tony Stark basically tells him he failed, it breaks his heart. When Andrew stopped being Spider-Man, it was because he failed for the second time to save someone close to him as Spider-Man. He doesn't know if he's a good enough hero, or if it's even worth being a hero if he can't protect anyone. Both Andrew and Tom stopped being Spider-Man because they were failing as Spider-Man. But Tobey stopped being Spider-Man because he was failing as Peter. He couldn't keep a job, he couldn't pay his rent, he wasn't doing great in school, and he was starting to lose his friends. Spider-Man is the reason that Peter's unhappy. So Peter decides,
I'm Spider-Man. No more.
the thing is, Peter's life doesn't even improve all that much. Sure, he has more time to study and actually go to school, but that's kind of it. We don't see him repairing those broken friendships, we don't see him get a job, he still can't pay his rent, and he actually just lost his only steady source of income by not being able to sell pictures of Spider-Man to the Daily Bugle.
You're fired.
So during his time while just being Peter, we see Peter just completely ignore someone who needs help. And not someone who needs Spider-Man's help, just needs anyone's help. When a powerless Andrew saw someone getting bullied, he stepped in, even if that meant he was going to be the guy getting his ass beat. And that's actually the same reason he came back as Spider-Man. He sees a crazy guy in a rhino mech terrorizing the city, and he steps in. He decides to protect the people, even if it means his life is in danger. I'll argue that when Tom comes back as Spider-Man, it's the least necessary of all of them. We already know that in this world, there are plenty of other heroes to deal with bad guys. And in this situation, Vulture isn't even directly hurting anyone. Now obviously the weapons he plans on stealing can hurt people, but it's not directly hurting anyone right now. Peter could have just said, anyone else can deal with this, I'm gonna go to the school dance and have fun with all my friends. Instead, he knows that there's a threat out there, and if he doesn't do anything, people can get hurt because of it. So he slaps on his PJs and gets out there. Tobey finally returns as Spider-Man when he sees Mary Jane get kidnapped right in front of him, and is told, unless Spider-Man shows up, Mary Jane's gonna die. Peter knew the whole time Doc Ock was still out there and just never did anything about it. He didn't care until it directly impacted his life. And unlike the other two, Tobey is the reason for what's happening. The whole idea behind Peter keeping Spider-Man a secret is that people don't go after him or the people he cares about. We see Harry tell Doc Ock to go after Peter because he's close to Spider-Man, defeating the entire point of having a secret identity. Everyone knows that Peter takes pictures of Spider-Man. He directly connects himself to Spider-Man. It's not like he has to. I'm pretty sure if Peter just asked, JJ wouldn't put his name on every picture he takes.
Takes the pictures of Spider-Man. I don't know who he is.
But I think this Peter just loved the attention. We really only see him happy as Spider-Man when people are praising him and giving him a goddamn parade.
They love me.
He loves the attention so much he can't be bothered to give a shit about the love of his life. Her dreams are falling apart and her boyfriend just cheated on her in public. This Peter has the worst relationships. He's emotionally distant to Mary Jane. It's not like he's all that great to Aunt May. And he basically told the ghost of his uncle to piss off, ghost! And worst of all is what he did to his best friend, Harry Osborn. And yes, Harry's kind of a scumbag for dating MJ, even though Pete kind of told him to do it. But I don't find it very heroic to be a spiteful dick.
Look at little Goblin Jr.
After the Green Goblin fight in the first movie when Norman dies, Peter brings the body back to Harry, and Harry walks in and sees the two of them, and Peter decides to leave without a word. And this leads Harry to believe that Spider-Man just killed his dad. So naturally, Harry constantly tries to bring it up to Peter, and every time Peter just ignores it. And all because, what, Norman asked you not to tell Harry? You don't have to tell Harry that his dad was the Goblin, just that he was a casualty to the Goblin. And now maybe you're thinking, well, Harry wouldn't have believed him, or it wouldn't have mattered anyway because Harry was already going down this evil path. And to that I say, you're thinking of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 when Andrew and Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn sit down and have a discussion, and Spider-Man tries to explain the situation to Harry, but he refuses to listen.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
But with James Franco's Harry, he obviously would have believed if at any point Peter or Spider-Man had just told him the Goblin was the one who killed his dad. And I know Harry would have just believed this because when Bernard
Thanks, Bernard.
Bernard?
tells Harry the truth, Harry just believes it without a single question. Instead of just being honest, Peter decides to keep another secret from everyone and watches his best friend throw his life away to chase after a lie. Peter even has another chance to be honest with Harry after the amnesia and when Harry's probably in a more stable emotional state of mind. But instead, he uses Harry's memory loss to be friends again. This Peter doesn't actually care about the people close to him. And sure, Andrew didn't have the best relationships with people either, but the difference is, he apologizes.
I'm so sorry.
Even if it's as simple as remembering to get eggs for his aunt, it's still something. Tobey never apologizes to anyone besides Ditkovich, who, by the way, is not a piece of shit considering Peter never pays his rent on time, and being the guy asking for rent does not make you a bad person. The fact that he hasn't thrown Peter out for never paying his rent is enough for me to argue that Ditkovich is a pretty nice guy.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
No, you want a working door, you pay your rent. That's how that works. You don't like it, leave. But besides Ditkovich, he never apologizes to anyone. He doesn't apologize to Aunt May for abandoning her when a giant crazy octopus man attacks her at the bank. Or maybe he could apologize to Gwen for literally just using her. When Peter asks Harry to help him save Mary Jane, instead of saying, "I need your help," maybe be like, "I'm sorry for everything I've done to you. I haven't been honest with you. I've been a piece of shit to you and I don't deserve your help, but Mary Jane does." And he never apologizes to Mary Jane either. He lied to her. He constantly put her in danger. He physically assaulted her. And yes, it was the symbiote, but he still hit her and should apologize. But worst of all is probably what Peter did to Ursula. The person who was there for him when he was at his lowest. The person who only ever wanted to see him happy. And this is the last time we see him interact with her?
You got any more nuts?
I have some nuts. I could make some.
Go make me some.
Go get hit by a train.
A Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Spins away